Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third installment here in our Dresden discussion series. We are now going into books 7 through 9, and I will let everybody introduce themselves. Starting over here,
Is over here me?
you can take it.
Sure.
You can whichever one.
I know. It's so hard to tell every time. I'm Sarah, back again to discuss Dresden, and I'm really excited because we're getting to the books that really made me fall in love with the series. So I'm excited to discuss these ones.
I'm Chaz. I'm somewhat new to Dresden, not totally, but I'll be reading Changes next month.
Ooh, big
Very
moment.
excited. So no spoilers, please. But yeah. But I love Dresden. It's an amazing series.
And I'm Nathan, just one of JR's friends that he likes to pull on here and bounce ideas off of. So, yeah, I've got a bunch of useless ideas, and I'm happy to share them with everybody.
Always what we're looking for.
And I guess we're going to be starting off with I always, whenever I like do my reviews and we, discuss Dresden, I think after you get through the first few books, I think they're all solid from there. But then I'll tell people that I just talked to, and if I'm just chit chatting with somebody, there are certain books that are like legendary Dresden books. And I think Deadbeat is in that vein there. Um,
It's,
but
I think it's the first one that codifies, kind of the quintessential Dresden that people like latch onto immediately. Like if you like the Dresden Files, this is what made it the Dresden Files. I would say, this is kind of the codification of Butcher's, formula.
like, how did you like Sarah? How did you feel like coming in to Deadbeat, and what were you expecting once we kind of got it rolling?
I think I had stopped after book 6 and I did a group review for the first 6 books, kind of exploring my thoughts and how I felt about the series so far. And at that point, I had been happy that I picked it up again. I was feeling generally positive about Dresden on the whole. I had some things about it that I still was not the biggest fan of, but like overall my feelings were definitely positive. And then I read book 7 and I was like, okay, this is why people love this series. It was where I went from this is really fun to read and I'm glad I picked it up again to oh my god, I need to read the next one immediately. And then the next one and the next one. It took me months to get through books 1 to 6 because I think I read them like about one per month, and then it took me no time to get through from like 7 till the end because I just couldn't stop after that. It was impossible.
Uh, so how were your feelings coming in here, Chaz?
Oh, Deadbeat was great. I also really fell into my stride with book 7. And then coming into Deadbeat, I was just solidly along from the ride from book 7 on. So I've been doing about one a month since. Before that, it was about one every 2 to 3 months, just kind of as a palate cleanser if I needed something. But now it's a solid staple in my booktube diet. Um, yeah, so I love it. Deadbeat is one of my favorites. Um, I've got a couple that I like better. One of which we'll be discussing later today, but I do
Okay.
like Deadbeat a lot. Yeah. So, uh, and I don't know if we start talking about elements of Deadbeat yet, but I'll just leave it at that until you're ready for it. So.
Okay. Yeah, and one thing that I feel like with Deadbeat is there's so many quotable things in Deadbeat. And I mean, there's things like me and my wife, because she's finished the Dresden Files as well, and I'll just random like she'll be like we'll be like moving books around, and I'll just be like give me the book, Like, I mean, I'll say to people who I know have no idea, but I just can't help myself just because Cal just always sticks out, especially if you listen to the audiobook. It just sticks out in my head. I can't get it out of there.
I can see that. There's some great scenes in Deadbeat beyond even the quotes. Just some of the scenes that I'm sure if you read Dresden and then left it behind for 20 years, there are parts of Deadbeat that would be the like brightest memories of your series.
Yeah.
Oh,
And in this book is where, because originally I had watched interviews where Jim will say that Butters was supposed to be a throwaway character. He was supposed to be a kind of a one and done, but then he just couldn't get him out of his head, and he just kept writing him. And this is the book where, you know, Butters starts to become like one of the most beloved characters.
Oh yeah, yeah. Butters is great.
Yeah, he gets his moment. I can't imagine. Can you imagine the series with no Butters?
Oh
No.
Yeah, I know.
Not at all
I mean,
now.
we can't do without the polka god, you know.
Oh my gosh, Polka will never die.
Well, it looks like Alex is here.
Oh yeah, he's down low.
Down
There we
indeed.
go.
Where is Alex?
It's me, Mario.
We made it. I don't know how long you've been sitting down there. If it was sorry, I thought you were going to be on the right side of the screen.
38 minutes.
Oh my god, where is Alex? So, you can go ahead and introduce yourself. If I mean, everybody probably knows you, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Everyone. Not a single soul on the internet doesn't know me. No. Hi, guys. I'm Alex. I'm late. Putting the kids to bed. Apologies. Deadbeat is awesome, though, as I'm sure you've been told at this point.
So what did you guys think about the the storyline that they were kind of, Jim was putting out in Deadbeat here as we started? We'll start with Alex.
I loved it. It harkened back a little bit to like some of the earlier Dresdens, but also I love the setup of Splattercon ! Exclamation point, and just having like the horror villains, kind of like different varieties of things happening.
That's you're talking about proven guilty.
Damn it! I'll save that then. Deadbeat, yes, of course.
Necromancers, zombies.
Oh, the Word of Kemmler. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ignore
yes.
everything. I don't know who's talking just now, but it was weird. Did you guys hear that? He's talking about
That's some random person.
Yeah, no, this one you get a lot of great moments between Harry and Thomas, though, because it really grows on their relationship and them living together, and it's almost like a comedy half the time of them just like in the apartment together because they're just total opposites. And Thomas is a trip. Harry just lives in just crappy little apartment. Now you have Thomas there. You've got a whole lot of gay jokes basically throughout this book between the two of them. And I think that even continues into the next
few.
I believe in White Knight as well. But
they can't tell anybody that they're siblings.
Yeah.
So
like, there's a lot of
it's like, why
tension.
You guys are hanging around a lot.
Yeah, why are you so close to him? You got a thing going on?
That's,
and then Thomas is gonna roll with that.
A lot of good stuff between Harry and Thomas in this, but I'm sure we'll hit on it later, so I won't talk about it yet. But there's obviously a great moment explaining his hunger a little bit later.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I thought was really funny, and I'm pretty sure it was in this book. I'm trying to remember now, but he walks in and Thomas has the girl in his room, and she comes out, and that's where you get the most blatant when Harry's all upset, and she's like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't know you guys were a thing.
And he's like, oh my god, just get out. Yeah. Well, and I love the dynamic because you definitely I don't think Jim has any brothers, but he definitely has the dynamic down for it because like Harry comes home and there's just clothes all over the floor, trash isn't taken out, mouse hasn't went out, and he goes to make like a sandwich or get a Coke, and he's like, you drank the last Coke. Like he's about to like kick the door down and like Thomas, did you do nothing when I was gone?
They hate each other in only the way that brothers can.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, here we also see, like Alex was saying, that Thomas is fighting. He's having issues trying to integrate into society because everywhere he goes, his hunger slash the aura around him gets him in trouble.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it kind of reflects like sexism that you would see towards a lot of guys, because he could be like, she's all up on me and I can't say anything about it. Like if I say something, they just ignore it. They ignore me. They don't care. Like that was an interesting take on that.
But yeah, as we kind of got into the book, there's another aspect is that Harry, I'm trying to remember her name, but when Harry first figures out that these there's this book that everyone seems to be wanting, and he has to go to Bach's bookstore, and what is the girl's name that he runs into with the photographic memory?
Sheila, I think.
Sheila, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what did you guys think when we first ran? Because I mean, we all know what happens with it. But did anybody see anything or was that completely out of left field?
Oh, it completely caught me off guard.
Yeah, it caught me off guard too. I mean, here's this extremely well-read genius woman, well-read in the dark arts and different things like that, and she's like the perfect pairing for Harry. So yeah, that when you find out later that just totally threw me off.
I did not expect her to be a good person, but I did not expect her to be who she was. That did take me off guard, but I did not expect it to be someone with whom Harry was going to have a functional relationship, because
yeah,
he can't. Harry can't be in a functional relationship.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah, and I mean, I love did anybody know anything about the Earl King before this? I mean, had you guys heard of him? I mean, I'm big into folklore and stuff, but I hadn't heard of him, and I know they were making it a really big deal, and then of course, waiting outside the bookstore is some more legendary characters.
Yeah. I've never heard of the Earl King specifically before this book, but I'm familiar with the Wild Hunt. That's pretty much a staple of Fey lore.
Yeah.
Did they mention the Earl King in Summer Night or one of the earlier books? I could have sworn that they there was a one-off mention of him, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember.
Yeah,
possibly. I don't recall. The Deadbeat was the first time I can remember for sure hearing about him, but they may have had. There's so many little nuggets that he places in these things. I would not be surprised by that.
If it was, where's Jake when you need him?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I know they had talked about the wild fae and and there was. I almost feel like Alex. I almost think that maybe they did mention that there was a kind of like a mirror of the Winter Queen, and there was but I do think I remember hearing that.
I mean, I could be totally wrong. I feel like they might have mentioned it one time before, but it didn't play a role in the
role.
book.
Yeah. Well, and then I mean, we had was it Komori was out there with Cal, and she was trying to talk Dresden down about we're actually the good guys. We want the same thing, and
classic bad guy move.
Yeah. It's classic good cop, bad cop. But I think this is where we first, because isn't this where they first mention the Black Council? They first Yeah,
I think,
mentioned by
yeah.
name.
Harry mentions that he like refers to them as the Black Council, right?
Mhm.
At the end of this book, right, is when
Yeah.
he has the
Yeah,
conversation
think
with
it's this
Ebenezer
book.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the first times outside of like in a direct combat that where because Harry's fought like things and like fairies, but he's never like went. I don't think he's went up against a wizard that he out and outright said is stronger than him. Like, cause, and you know, and I was like, well, what road are we gonna go down here now? Because he goes, this guy is like a tank. He was, I've never felt anything outside of the senior council.
Mhm. Yeah, up until
It's
this
Gandalf.
point, Harry has always been considered pretty OP, but now, yeah,
Well, he's
it's
a
kind of
medium-sized fish that just landed himself in a large pond.
right.
Well, and then I think he drops a car on him, and
Yeah,
And Cal just tanks it. He just shrugs it off like it's not a big deal. I think he even mocks him afterwards. Is that the point where he goes, "Disappointing. I'm just disappointed in you."
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and then we had another one. I forget, was it the corpse taker with the ghoul?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I loved that aspect, and that's kind of most Dresden books have like multiple, multiple different
Villains.
storylines. Well, in this one, I guess what we kind of glossed over it here, but we didn't mention it. But like, I guess at the beginning of the whole book, it was Mavra
Mhm.
was setting Harry to go get the book because
Yeah,
she
that's
had,
how it
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool that this book starts with a villainous moment of awesome, because she just straight rules lawyers and just
Blackmails them.
blackmails the crap out of them.
She's like, here's a bunch of pictures I have.
Mhm.
Oh no. What was it? They were saying, oh, it doesn't matter that they're they're Renfields. It doesn't matter that they're enthralled and they're completely unsaved. This
Mhm.
straight up looks like a crazy cop lady shooting innocent people.
Yep.
Mhm. Right.
Well, and it was very convenient. And we see this from time to time with Jim, where he wants to give other characters the shine. So he basically he was just like, and it was kind of weird at how he was just like, yeah, Murphy's going on vacation, and just like, and she's going on vacation, and then with Kincaid.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for Harry because like at this point you're just like, come on, man, you're just gonna, and he's like, in his head he knows he's jealous, but he's like, what can I do? I can't say anything, right? You're right.
You gotta
Am
be
I-
zen.
am I-
Harry's an idiot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, and the whole time he's like, he's like triple guessing himself. He's like, okay, well, does she want me to say anything? But she
Mhm.
wants me to say something. I shouldn't. And but then he was just like, what was the running joke? Water her plants or something like that. She's like, I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm watering her
Yep.
plants while she's gone. And that that even comes up, I don't know, maybe a few more books down the line with her, her and Kincaid. But I do like that Jim will do that from time to time, so we could get closer with Butters, and
This is the book that Rollins gets introduced in, isn't it?
Was that
Um,
proven guilty?
Yeah, that's proven guilty. Yeah.
yeah.
Or he might have been introduced in this, but I know you
Yeah,
actually interact with him in proven guilty at Splattercon.
Right. He
Yeah.
gets a bigger role then, but doesn't he talk to Harry about Murphy's dad or something?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I know he's in proven guilty for sure. He's in that book throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just trying to think about that.
I think he's right though. I'm pretty sure he's briefly in this one too.
But yeah, when and we get the start off of Butter's arc because where he attacks him where they're attacked at the
The
morgue.
necromancer,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was pretty cool, and I think it was really clever, the way Jim set up the drumming where he had to
Yeah.
keep the beat
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, that's one of the elements that really impressed me that I kind of alluded to earlier when we first started the stream, because you know, to my knowledge, at least from what I've read, I've never read a book where the zombies or the thralls, we should have to be actively maintained, like with a beating or a certain rhythm to keep them from going berserk. That was quite clever. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think this was the book where they pulled in. I don't think Marcone was a big part of it, but one of Marcone's guys who was trying to retire had the information all saved on a disk drive, right?
Flash drive, I think.
Yeah, and that's what that was the dead guy in the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why Butters became such a a big part, because he was nobody can all these wizards can't get close, which is a pretty ingenious by the Marcone's guy was pretty smart, knowing that would be a safekeeping against wizards. And now you're starting to see how humans can actually get the better of some of the supernatural community.
It doubles as a really cool foreshadowing chance too. When they created, Harry showed Butters how to create a protective circle to keep his magic from messing it up, and then that comes into play later on in the book. Well, it catches you way off guard. Harry looks over, and then Butters is straight up in this circle that he didn't tell him to make or anything. He's like, the boy's a quick learner.
Well, it's also the first time that he fully brings Butters in on what's happening, because up till now he's kind of known about the supernatural, but Harry's kept him kind of at arm's length. And then this book, he was just these are warlocks. That's bad news. This is going to be really dangerous. And even Bob is scared. When he mentions the word of Kemmler, he's just no. He's stop talking right now. Leave that alone.
His former big boss.
Yes. Yeah. So Sarah, what did you think about the scene with Bob and and Harry?
I really liked it because Bob up to this point is good for comic relief, but when we get that piece of his backstory and we see how terrifying he actually was and how much of his personality depends on his keeper, the person that he is with, it opens up a lot of possibilities for what he may actually know, what he may do in the future. It really broadens the scope of what can be achieved with Bob. So I thought it was a big moment, and it was really cool.
And I think that kind of plays to Harry's character too, as a system of checks and balances for Harry. If I go off the deep end and turn evil, Bob's going to go with me, and he's going to create all sorts of chaos. So I think not only does he want to stay on the positive side of magic for the people he loves and things like that, but also so he doesn't unleash this even bigger threat with Bob. I don't know if that's where that's going, but it kind of feels like it makes sense to me that would be a checks and balance for Harry.
I mean, for sure.
It just makes you think about it. It puts it in your mind that is a possibility. It reminds you of Bob's potential. And it reminds us why Bob is hidden in a basement. We forget how dangerous he is to the community at large, the magic community.
And even beyond just Bob, I think it was in this book. It was one of these. I read them very close together, where he's having a conversation with people start to notice that Harry's getting angrier and kind of mean, and it starts to be consistent theme throughout the books that little things tick him off, and he rages, and it's like he's really powerful and potentially very dangerous and scary, and to the point where people are legitimately scared of him at times. And he's just like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not crazy."
Yeah.
They're like, "Dude, you were just talking to yourself." Like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, there's a lot of like, "Harry, are you okay, bro?" Like,
yeah. Well, and that's oh gosh, Billy. Yeah, Billy was
yeah,
with
that,
Billy
yeah.
was in with him a bit in this book, and
Mm-hmm.
he
He was
kept
scared.
alluding to it. Yeah, he was like
He's like,
he's
"Who are you
like
talking to?" It's like, "What are you?"
and Harry, it's weird. It's one of those things where Harry, when someone's like, hey, it's like, you're crazy. He says, I'm not crazy. You're saying crazy. It makes me crazy. It was kind of one of those things because he
Mhm.
was like,
Creating a feedback loop.
I'm
yeah,
not
because
crazy. I'll show you crazy. Like,
yeah, because Billy's like, hey Harry, I'm like, I'm not saying, but I am kind of saying like something's off with you. And
Yeah.
Harry's like, no, there's nothing off with me. If anything, like I could do anything I want if I wanted to, but I'm not.
yeah.
And then we kind of stumble upon that. I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the book
Mm-hmm.
when Harry goes to see Sheila. I think it's Sheila, right?
Yeah.
At her. Well, that would be the second time he went to check on her because all the power in the city went out, and he's going to check on her, and that's when we figure out that
The great big reveal.
that it's Lash.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what?
The beautiful part about that, though, is like everything about that makes completely logical sense.
Mhm.
Like they alluded to it with the burn in his hand in the last book.
Right.
The patch of skin in her emblem was perfectly fine. And so like that to me was like supreme foreshadowing that some shit's gonna go down.
Mhm.
And then the it dropped in this one, and then you're just like, the hell.
Well, and I think Jim painted like at this point. I mean, we're 7 books in. We're you're sucked in here, and and then you're in this room, and Harry thinks he's talking to a potential new girlfriend, whatever, and then it's Butters follows him up, right? Follows him up the stairs because he told Butters to wait, and he's like, oh Harry, what are you doing up here? And we're all just like, what do you mean? What is he doing up here? He's talking to his to this lady, and then he's like, nothing's up here, Harry. And then when the walls fall, the picture was painted so perfectly. I felt like I was there, just like watching watching the walls disappear and the wires just hanging out of the ceiling. I'm just like, oh my god, like I was like, how is Harry gonna mentally handle this? Knowing that
Not.
something has been manipulating him.
Well, as we learn, he doesn't handle it that well in the next couple of books. It's a constant battle.
Yeah,
Well,
very much so.
Well, and then we had another guy, a blast from the past. Did anybody catch up on like Sarah? Did you catch liver spots? Did you have any inkling of what he was?
No, I feel like a lot of things in this book kind of took me off guard. Like I would get a sense that I should be picking up on something or something is not quite right, but I wouldn't know exactly what it was. And then it would be revealed and I'd be like, oh, that's so good. So many clever moments in this book. And I think that's why I ended up enjoying it so much when I read it the first time.
Well, yeah, and one of the thing that misses with me is I believe that Harry multiple times says that he like liver spots is familiar somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Beforehand, and I'm just sitting there like I hate when that happens, especially in Dresden when you're like okay, he's familiar. Like Jim doesn't normally do stuff unless it actually means something. I'm like, so I'm rolling it like who is it? Like liver spots. Okay, the way that they're describing the guy, like, do I know a guy that looks like that? But yeah, I had no idea, until the museum. I was just like, oh, Harry, no.
Yeah, I didn't either. It was lost on me.
Well, and
Even the
Harry,
museum, there's also like so many hints about what's going to happen at the like when the thing happens and then you look back at the rest of the book, you're like, oh my god, I
yeah,
should have known that this is what was going to happen. But I also didn't peg that was gonna go down.
So Jim is a strong believer in the conservation of plot details. Like anything he brings up, it's going to matter. It's gonna make some kind of impact somewhere in the story or in his overall story. And this book is just jammed packed with foreshadowing. It's unreal when you like go back and reread it. All of the things that he incredibly subtly alludes to, that you catch after reading, 8 books past this book. You'll go back and go, holy he literally told us this was going to happen, and this is where.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, there was multiple things throughout the series that point directly back to this book, for just different random plot lines in future books, where you're just like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. But at the museum, like Harry takes beatings in almost all these books. I mean, these books are what, like they even mention like it's like the worst, because Harry, I forget what book it is, but he says something to somebody about like, he was like, yeah, I have a life outside of here. Like I go like, he goes to Texas and Oklahoma from time to time, and he goes other places. But these books are like the worst week of the year for Harry.
Yeah.
But what liver spots does to Harry is probably, at least up to this point, was the worst thing I think I'd ever seen happen to Harry, and where he's just was like beating him with a chain, and then he was like just cutting him with a box cutter and stuff. I'm just like, I mean, at this point, like you just feel for Harry. I mean, and then to watch something like that happen to him, you're like, oh my god.
Oh.
And then it's revealed and then he reveals who he is as he's doing it. You're just like, oh man.
Karmic. That's his karmic debt coming to collect right there.
Yeah.
Turns back
sure.
around.
And liver spots, beats him both physically and spiritually. So on a magical level, he nails him hard, and it's one of those things that, after it happens, it's sitting there, as a constant dark shadow over his head. After Mouse takes him out.
Well, this is the first taste of Butters, becoming somewhat of the hero here, where he comes back and tackles him and starts beating him with a wrench or something like that, and like he bites him. He's like holding on to his leg and like doing whatever he can do. But the thing I love about Butters is like, Butters, he doesn't like in some books this would be the part where like Butters just comes in and clobbers the guy, but no, Butters gets beat down too and just barely holds on.
Well, he's like this 5 foot something tiny bookworm of a guy.
Yeah.
Like you can't overcome raw physics.
And I love that he's just terrified, and not terrified in like the gruff fantasy, like, yes, we're all scared, but that's what gives you courage. Like, no, like I'm just shitting myself. I'm crying while I'm saying I love you, but it's refreshing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and after he's able to hold off long enough for Mouse to come back and finish him off, like I think he's got a broken nose. Like he's got a broken nose, and he's like, and Harry's like, you did it, man. You did. He goes, I did. I was pretty good, wasn't I? He's like, he still doesn't really wholly believe in himself. He's like, I did okay, guys, right?
Oh, Butters. It's also nice to see Mouse in action now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the full-size Dogosaurus.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and then at and then this is where the legendary part of Dresden, where Dresden's like, well, we can't, you can't make it through. He figures out that they're going to do the Dark Hollow, right? And you can't get through there without necromancer energy. And so he's like, oh, I love how they're like, well, humans are by far, and they even allude to it earlier in the book where they're like, well, the reason they take humans is because humans are more powerful, inherent to magic. But they were also like, but he also like snuck in there in the beginning. He's like, well, age is a big factor too, and then like you go from Harry just barely surviving there, and then he's like, oh. And I think the way Jim does it, Jim doesn't really tell you exactly what happens, and then the next thing is they're barreling out and they're going down the road, and he's like, yeah, he's like, keep the beat going,
Yeah.
and he's like, you're like, what beat? What are you doing? And then Harry says something to the effect of like, you would think Tyrannosaurus would be able to corner better, and you're like,
that
he's
was great.
riding Sue. What?
I also liked how they alluded to what happens if the beat stops, because he goes, "You keep that beat going," and Bud was like, "Yes, I know. If I stop the beat, no more dinosaur." And he's like, "No. If you stop the beat, dinosaur does whatever the hell it wants."
You have loose dinosaurs.
Right, exactly. It goes berserk.
I like even before that, though. I mean, if we circle back to earlier, like one of the smaller moments before we get the big bombastic ending with Sue and everything that happens with Bob, like little moments with Thomas when he's trying to explain to Harry like why he has to control his hunger. Because I always love that part of this book because he makes him race him, and then when he gets to the end of the race and Harry's like, "Oh, I gotta drink my water," he's just like,
yeah,
like, that's what it feels like. Love it.
Another legendary scene. I mean, I mean, I just loved it because like Harry was kind of getting on him a little bit about like, come on, it can't be that.
He's like, just don't be a vampire. Like, just,
yeah. He's like,
you try
can't be that bad.
You try just ignoring your demon in you. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah,
which is kind of ironic considering the Lash gets stuck in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I liked how it kind of all went down, where they're like, they're like racing, right? And they get to the end, and Harry's like huffing and puffing, and what's he like? He like throws sand in his mouth or something.
No, he like grabs his water and starts to drink it, and Thomas just smacks it out of his hand. Yeah. So he's just sitting there with a burning throat. Yeah, he's like, and he was all mad about it. Like when he first did it, he was like, "What the hell, man?" Yeah, and then you jump into Harry's mind for a second. He's like, I just want to punch him right now. And then he goes, yeah, all the time. And you're just like, oh man, and you get that, yeah, and that's the reason I liked that. Kind of Murphy was out of this book, so Thomas, we could build Thomas up even more. And Thomas and Butters. He said, Murphy, take a vacation.
Yeah, take a vacation. Later. Yeah, but I mean, this is where Thomas really starts becoming one of my favorite characters.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, fun. Well, who doesn't like a sex vampire cutting people up with a freaking cavalry saber? I mean, that like
sounds like a good weekend right there.
Mm-hmm. What I love too is that this is the first book where like the war between the Red Court and the Wardens actually felt like it was happening.
Yeah,
and not some crap happening in the background.
Yeah, but like they run through some numbers because I took a note of like it was like halfway through the book or whatever when like they started talking about how the Red Court had escalated. They had already taken out like a fifth of the Wardens, and then they were using outsiders and like chased them through the She Kingdom. So they're already just like crossing through the Never Never, running through Ferry to hunt down all these Wardens. And like it was just the first attack. They took out 38 Wardens, and then they unleashed outsiders. They took out another 23, and then more were wounded. And you learn that there's like a mole inside the council that's feeding information to the Red Court. That's why they keep catching them off guard. And then the freaking vampires just gas an entire hospital and like level blocks of city and just
like annihilate
so many people. It was like 6 square blocks. They killed everybody. It was thousands of dead people. And then I go warden death count now 143. I was like, what the hell?
Well, yeah.
This is one of those places where you really start to feel the stakes of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, and when Harry knows that this is like too big for him, and he calls in the wardens, and he calls, and was it like Lucio picks up, and he knew it was bad. He's like, Lucio doesn't answer phones,
right?
And then they all show up at Mac's place, and she like slides over the cloak.
He gets drafted.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I don't want that. She's like, I don't really care. You're wearing it.
This is the organization
he's like, no, I don't want it. She goes, I don't care if you don't want it. You're taking it. Yeah.
Like, this organization has been nothing but hell on earth for him.
You remember when you wanted to behead me like 30 years ago? I don't want to work for you. She's like, it's your size. Like, just put it on.
Jim does something very clever in this scene, though. Like, when he's being bombarded with all these facts of life, these things are gonna, like, they're immutable. You're not going to leave this building without taking this cloak. You're a warden now. It's already happened. It's already written, and all this stuff. And he's just like, no, you guys were bastards to me. I hate everything about all of you. And she's like, what do you mean? And then he starts talking about everything Morgan has done. And she's like, the hell? And she just rips into Morgan, and you're like, oh, they're not all like that. I like Lucio. So, like, he quickly does a 180 on you and makes you like the organization that Harry has talked nothing but bad about since the first book.
Yeah,
I think that was really clever.
It is, and he does that a lot. He gives you tiny peeks into the fact that you only know what Harry knows, and Harry has such a limited perspective, and he has such a strong personality that he makes his likes and dislikes very obvious. And it's the same thing as him, like Alex said earlier, where he's like leveling up and powering up, and people are scared of him. But he is so self-deprecating that for a good chunk of the beginning of the series, you don't really know how strong he is, because he just plays himself down all the time.
He also fumbles through a lot of things and gets lucky pretty often.
Yeah, he does.
Like, I think we talked about it last chat, where he kind of tunnel visions and gets super selfish and like hyper focused on things. And because we're in his head, we're like, yeah, like we're cheering for Harry, and it's like zero ramifications going on in the brain of like anything else happening. Just, I'm focused on this. This is what's happening. I'm doing this, and it's like, oh, like half the city's dead. Oops. Like, sorry.
What's happening over here?
Yeah.
Well, what's it say on his headstone? Here lies Harry Dresden. He died doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, and and that was I did kind of like when Harry finally decides, he's like, all right, I'll take the position. And more like the look on Morgan's face and the way Morgan reacts, that made the whole scene worth it. I was like, thank God there's nothing better than pissing off Morgan. That's just that's the best. That's the best.
Except when Morgan thinks you killed Lucio.
Then he gets scary.
I was like, oh shit, how is Harry gonna make it out of this one?
Well, and we always thought that Morgan was good, but like when they tell, I don't know if it was Lucio or if it was because Ramirez got introduced in this book, right? This is the first time he's ever been he was ever spoken of. I think it was Ramirez that said that he almost got to the Red King. Yeah. They're like, yeah, he made it to within 10 feet of the Red King, and you're like,
Morgan's badass. He's just a colossal asshole.
Yeah. Right. You're like, okay. Well, and then they tell you that, and then again we get into the battle here, at the Dark Hollow. And when they're pulling everybody up, and when Corpse Taker tricks Lucio and ends up snatching her body. I mean, seeing Harry shoot her, he's like
in her eyes,
I was like, oh damn. And then
Morgan's like, finally I can kill you now.
And then and you're like, when they're like, and because he said something to the effect of, he's like, He goes, and then I heard the voice of Morgan behind me, and I was like, "Oh, freaking course! Of course you come up at the most inconvenient times, Morgan." You know, I wasn't sure how they were gonna, backpedal out of that because you start seeing like more because Morgan's what like earth magic was that what he was using? He was like breaking down all like making sinkholes around Harry and stuff, and then we finally got to see the Warden's blade actually do what they've always said it does because like didn't like Harry try to put up like one of like his hardest shields and it just dispersed it, and Harry's like he's like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Like,
yeah, that part right there was really cool. I loved how they showcased you how utterly powerful Lucio is in her enchanting abilities and stuff, making those swords. Because he just basically what is it like he does a weird gesture or something with his wrist or something, and it just completely negates that shield, and that's when, like you said, that's when Harry's oh shit face drops, and he's like, yeah, I'm in trouble. Things are gonna go bad.
I mean, you even get him to the point where he kind of accepts it. He's like, all right, he's literally gonna kill me. Like,
this is how I die.
It's been real.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he runs to Sue. And he's like, oh, at first he was like, okay, I if I have to,
dinosaur.
like, I'll send the dinosaur on you, and then
Morgan doesn't care. Morgan doesn't give a crap.
And then, like Alex said, he kind of Harry's like, okay, well, we have to win this, and if I have to die to do it, and then he just kind of lays his blasting rod down and stuff, and he was just like, come kill me, Morgan, if you think I did it, That was one of those moments where you're just like, what's Morgan gonna do here? And then of course we had Ramirez and Lucio in her new body coming in right at the last second
to save the day.
We also get a nice little death curse.
Lucio got an upgrade.
Yeah. Of course you did. We couldn't have an old woman.
No, you have to have a young hot.
I mean, come on now, like, it works out. What works out in a few books, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Once she learns her way around. Yeah, you get Cassius's little nasty death curse.
Yeah,
yeah.
Die alone. I think Harry has brought it up a few times, but it it's still lingering out there what any of that, might mean, or because I'm trying to think of who he brings it up to. And
it's his dad, isn't it? In that little dream sequence.
When he talks to his dad earlier in the book.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't he talk to him again, or is it Michael? It's someone he's talking to, and he's like talking to him about the death curse, which, and the guy basically breaks it down. He was like, "Well, yeah, but that's a shitty death curse. We all die alone. Everyone dies alone. You pass through the from life to death. It's just you."
That's what Harry's dad says. Yeah. He's like, we all die alone, son. He's like, and I think that was
so. It was his dad.
Yeah, because he wakes up and he's like he's like out in the woods or something around a campfire, and then he sees his dad standing or sitting across from him, like cooking or something, and hands him like a coffee or something, and then just starts talking to him. And he was like, I'm afraid. He's like, I'm afraid, Dad. Like, he was, am I gonna end up dying alone? And that's what he's like. He goes, we all die alone. We all, he goes, but you live together. He goes, you have your family and your friends.
Yeah, you'll have them on both sides of death. Like you alive, you'll have the family that you've made and everything, and then once you cross that threshold alone, you'll have family on the other side. Something along those lines.
Did you? Go ahead, Chess.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think part of it too is just like naturally in Harry's case, unless he becomes involved with somebody who is a wizard or has powers of that nature, he's going to long outlive anybody that he gets into a relationship with if they're human. So I think there's a natural component to that too, but maybe that death curse makes it even more real. I'm not sure, but
Well, and I don't know if it's Cal, but somebody had said that they had endured death curses before. So it may even be that Harry's too powerful for his death curse, because they said he wasn't that powerful of a sorcerer or whatever outside of having the coin. So but that is one of the things that we'll just kind of Jim will just have there lingering, have us questioning the whole time. I was like, when is this going to come back and blow up in Harry's face? But yeah, and then then of course we have like the final battle there, and just before the Dark Hollow, Harry ends up blowing it up for lack of a better term, and it looks like Cal gets like ripped apart or blown up, but then I love how Harry's able to kind of sneak the book out from underneath Lucio and Morgan and takes it back to Mavra. At this point, like I love how Harry kind of talks to Mavra. Like he's been through the ringer, and you can just tell he was just tired and just mad. And he was when he gives it to her, he was basically like here's your stupid book. He's like if you try anything, I will kill you and anyone that you ever have around you.
He's gonna hunt her down.
Oh, and just the way he throws it down, he's like, if you ever mess with my friends or family again, I'm going to pick up every piece of weaponry, every piece of knowledge that I have, and come. I'm declaring war on you. I know how the Dark Hollow works. I have a fallen angel just fallen over herself to give me more power, and the Queen of the Winter Court has asked me to be her knight 2 times. I'm picking them all up and I'm coming after you. So yeah, it's not a hollow boast. I'll say that.
Yeah, and then so from there we roll into proven guilty, which I think was as I reread it, I think it was a little bit of a underrated book, but I don't know. I've heard people online say that they're like, oh no, this is one of the the top books. Where did you guys, Sarah, like where did you fall when you were getting into proven guilty?
I was coming off the high of Deadbeat, so I think I read them back to back. This is the first time that I read 2 of them back to back, and I instantly liked it. There's a lot of things about Proven Guilty that I really love. And I don't know how much to go into detail right now, but I think it gives some female characters a lot more depth than they had previously, because really the only female character we had before this that we knew a lot about was Murphy. And she was still pretty one note for the first few books. She also becomes a character who gets explored a lot more, but especially with Charity in this book, we get to see a lot more from her than just like Michael's crabby wife who doesn't like his best friend, which is what she's been up until now, which is really good. And I enjoyed that part quite a bit. So I thought that it was a good follow-up to Deadbeat, and I was pulled into it immediately. And I like that it opens, if I'm remembering the way that it opens correctly, because it's been a while, it opens with the scene with the warlock, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Execution.
So we get to see like Harry, this mantle of warden is like thrust upon him. And then right at the beginning of this book, we get to see him in a system that he hates, doing something that he doesn't believe in.
Yep.
Which is a big moment for him. Like that's
Yeah.
a big ethical dilemma for him as a character. So it's interesting that he chose to open the book up like that. And I thought it was a good choice because it lets you see a little bit about the council, about how they feel like they're constrained and what they need to stop or what they need to prevent. And then obviously it opens up what's going to happen for the rest of the book, which is it's a really good setup. It's not as explosive, but it's
Yeah.
good.
It's not as explosive, but the ending of this book is one of my favorite endings to a Dresden book.
All
the
time.
council stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right up there all time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best, like, call in the cavalry because it's like a mental cavalry. Like it's just like it's all in the setup. The execution is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll circle back to it, but I mean, the way that they do it with the gatekeeper or whatever, just being like, please. They're like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting my time? He's like, hold on. The doors open up. It's like,
I love the gatekeeper. Like,
the gatekeeper's great.
Like, I don't know, the gatekeeper, he only comes in every so often, but like he always hits. Like either he's funny or he's really giving you like mind-blowing information. You know, Rashid is definitely like of like the side characters. Like he's at the top of my list. Like anytime he comes in, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, at the beginning, you already get, Harry questioning the council, being like, shouldn't we be saving these people? Like, and it comes back around again at the end. Like, why don't we just stop murdering warlocks when our numbers are decimated? Like, why don't you train them? Why don't you teach them the rules? Like, we're just out here executing teenagers for not understanding the magic rules that we set forth. Like, it's kind of a crappy situation there.
It was like such a dark opening to the book. You're just like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we'll just start off cutting teenagers' heads off. I mean,
and it comes back around at the end, and the bloodstains are still there and everything.
Yeah. Well, and he talks to McCoy right afterwards, and he's like, yeah, you guys did this on purpose. And it's what they tried to give him some BS excuse about, well, there's a lot of traffic, supernatural traffic comes through Chicago. It's one of the busiest. So that's the reason we met. But then, McCoy basically says, well, yeah, but the Merlin wanted you here for it. And that's and I mean, it just makes him hate the Merlin. Like, if he didn't hate the Merlin enough already.
Well, this book really hammers into the reader how much of an absolute dirtbag he is. Like, people like honestly, if I had to, I'm not a psychologist, but to me, that he is a complete sociopath. Like, people are pawns to him.
Absolutely.
And you see that full bore at the end of the book and everything, because he doesn't give a crap about what happens to the warlock there. We'll get to that in a minute, I suppose. But like, it's all to hurt Harry. Literally, everything that happens to another living human being there is an afterthought. It's just to hurt Harry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we get the whole explanation with oh my gosh, the warden. I just lost his name. The asshole warden. No.
The a-hole one? Not Morgan, right?
Morgan, yeah. Well, we learned that like Morgan, the kind of, Morgan is like 100% just law, whatever. Even if he understands situations, well, we figure out the Merlin is basically the same way too. He's just like, I don't care about circumstances. This is what happened, and this is what we're gonna do, and that basically puts a rift. I mean, and we kind of see it starting a couple books back with, how McCoy and Listens to Wind and Harry are starting to kind of drift a little bit, and they're like, they're the ones that kind of see nuance, and then you have the other ones that are just like, this is the way it has been, this is the way it's always going to be. If you break the law, we kill you. And I think it really starts to widen right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think if I remember right, yeah, Harry's already found out. He already knows by now that Ebenezer is the council's guy who can break the laws,
Yeah.
and so there's already that hypocrisy in place, and and yet, you know, they won't budge just for the average person, but for Ebenezer, it's okay. Um, so they've got one little bubble of gray, and then the rest is all black and white. And yeah, Harry's already pissed off about that enough, and then it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. And so what did you think about the setup here with Molly calling Harry to bail her out of jail?
Another
Oh
great
yeah,
instance of
to
getting
bail
real
her
mad.
boyfriend out, right? Or to bail that guy out anyway. Yeah. That was interesting.
Well, she abuses the friendship, and he calls her out
She
on it.
does.
He
Yeah.
gets very mad.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, learned that her boy toy looks eerily similar to a young Harry Dresden.
Right.
Well, and that's what like Harry figures out a little bit into the book. He kind of realizes he's like, because like at the beginning of the books, Harry's like close to 25, and she was like, was she like 14, something like that? At
So, I mean,
13.
their
Yeah.
ages aren't huge. You know, when say Harry's
Yeah.
40 and
Yeah.
she'll be in her 30s.
But
You know,
but the thing is, he realizes he goes, well, when she was really young and impressionable, I was always the guy coming to the rescue. I'm saving the day, And he's like, well, yeah, I guess she would think of me in a certain way, kind of the bad boy.
Great. I gave her a complex.
But as we kind of come into Splattercon, did any of you like? What were your thoughts when we started? He basically started putting all these slasher villains into the book. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
The lawyer safe cameos.
You had when they even like some of them he said the movies, but then others he was I don't know if Jim like thought that there were some he could get away with, and then some he might get sued over.
Right, copyright.
Because they were like, the one guy was clearly Jason, right? But he said he had a sickle, and and he's like, it's a guy wearing an old hockey mask. And then he makes fun of Chucky. They had Chucky in there at one point. It's like, I don't even know why anybody was scared of this guy. But
they called him Bucky the Murder Doll.
Bucky the Murder Doll. But I did like that they figured out that it was fear that they were feeding off of. But there were like, and this was another thing where it's like, this was another one of those books where you didn't get what the angle was at first, because Harry was thinking it was one person, and then it turned out to be a totally different, a different, story. It had nothing to do with that guy. But one of the scenes, and I don't know why, it always sticks out to me, is the first scene where Harry meets up with Rollins and he's trying to get a glimpse at the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And Roland's like, yeah, buddy, I'm not gonna let you go in there. He's like, God, come on, man.
I mean, look.
Yeah, you know me. I'm not gonna do. He's like, yeah. Anytime you get involved, he's like, shit gets weird. He goes, I'm gonna get fired if I let you go in that bathroom. He's like, God, can you open the door? Just let me look inside. Yeah,
I mean, but the reason I like this one too, though, is because following up Deadbeat, when you have a massive ending like that, you have to tone it down a little bit. You can't just go bigger on bigger. So kind of pulls it back, has more, I'd say, intimate story somewhat. And like, you learn a lot about the family of the Carpenters, but
Yeah.
also just like with the villains, you don't really know what the hell's happening because
Yeah.
it's like it's just a fun idea of like movie slasher villains just coming to life and killing people. And like this, you're learning about phobophages, you're getting to know Molly a little bit and the shit that she's getting into. And it was just like a fun little, kind of one-off storyline, similar to like what you would have gotten earlier in the books, where it's kind of just like you're probably not going to see this happen again. It's not like a big bad. It's not Nicodemus. It's not Marcone. It's not the Red Court. It's just like a smaller, like there's some phobophages. They're movie villains brought to life, and you got to figure out what's going on. But I really like how everything about
It sounds like, to me, it sounds like you're cutting out there, Alex.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that.
I thought I was having a stroke.
I don't know what's going on. Can you still not hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, you're better now.
now you're back.
Yeah, now.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, I like the Carpenters. It's fine. It's a good book. Carry on.
Well, yeah, it is cool. It does give you a cool little window into the Carpenter family, and especially the relationship between Molly and her mom. I think we get a lot bigger glimpse at what all is going on there, because she obviously, I mean, deep down she loves her mom, but she's definitely in that rebellious stage.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
She
she
shows
goes
up
on a
looking
team?
like Harley Quinn in the first scene.
Yeah, that's true.
wasn't this the this is where Michael got sent away towards the beginning of the book,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael basically throws it in Harry's lap. He's like, hey, fix it.
Mhm.
Can
Yeah.
you fix them while I'm gone? And Harry's like, I guess you're like my best friend. I'm gonna try, but like, I don't have, I don't know family stuff.
Michael's just like got Amaracus on his back. He's like, "You figure this out.
You're
I'm
a
gonna
good
go.
friend."
I got a flight to catch.
I got stuff to do.
Make sure they don't kill each
Hand
other."
off.
Yeah. Well, and where Michael basically says to his wife, his wife and Molly, he's like, hey, he goes, I got a lot of stuff to deal with. I'm about to run out here and risk my life. Can you two get along until I get back? I mean, it's a great parent moment, but also like with, of course, like the supernatural, if you're thinking, you're like, man, yeah, you got, like, he's getting ready to go off and fight demons, and then he's in the back of his mind, he's like, yeah, my house is falling apart. That's not good.
Now, anybody else here ever hear about the? Well, to harken back to the last book, did anybody else hear about the Deadbeat that never was? Because originally it was going to be very different. Like originally, Deadbeat was going to be book 8, and Proven Guilty was going to be book 7.
Interesting.
Like originally he wanted the role of Butters to actually be Molly.
Oh,
And-
really?
Mm-hmm. And
I can't picture Butters and pigtails.
right? He changed it up though, because this is one of my favorite little anecdotal stories from Butcher. But his publisher came up to him after book 6, and he was like, "You got anything big for the next book?" And he's like, "Oh, I got some things I'm thinking about." And he goes, "Well, you got to make it really big, make it memorable." And then he goes, "Oh, what? Why?" Then the publisher kind of gives him this eye, and he goes, "Hardback? This is going to be my first hardback?" And the guy confirms it and everything, and he goes, "Well, hell, I got to make this thing memorable." And so he was like, okay, well, we got the phobophages I planned on doing, but then the next book's going to have Sue. All right, we got to switch these. But then he's like, well, shit, I can't put Molly in it without introducing her as the apprentice. So what I'm going to do? Then he harkens back and remembers, I got this one-off Butters. I can stick him in it. And it's really interesting how big of a difference.
Funny how that works out.
Right? Like how that right there is a perfect example of a butterfly effect, because it's like so much of the later books would be different without Butters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, and here he kind of throws you off the scent by making you think it's the was it I'm trying to think, is it the Scavis?
Yeah, this gave us.
Yeah, where he was the movie producer, and of course we end up back at the Full Moon Garage. I'm like, dang, okay, we're going all the way back, And Harry even mentions that he goes, and this is, and I don't know if this was the book, but he mentions things just tend to keep happening at the same bad places, and this was one of those where and he even mentions it's like, oh yeah, the hole where the wolves dug out is still there, and this is one of the first times where he actually uses Lash, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is when we start stepping down that slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we also get, so as Sarah was saying, when we learn a little bit more about Bob in the last book, and he's not just comic relief, he goes directly back into pervert comic relief in this book when he's telling Harry to bang Molly, and Lash goes like, the little pervert has a point. And I think he's like, doesn't he say like, that's my little pervert, or he like defends Bob, but he's like, he's like, don't talk about him. He's like, he's mine.
Mm-hmm.
He's mine to insult.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, and he's like, and we kind of come back to, Harry leaning on Bob again for more, information, and I think he ends up using Lash as like night vision. Is that if I remember correctly, when he's and they have him in the thorn handcuffs again, and he was just like, damn it, these things again, and he ends up dislocating his fingers or rearranging the bones in his hands.
His busted hand. So like at least he had one that was messed up that,
His strong hand.
Grab my strong hand.
And like,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, it's a little bit weirder than night vision. Like, this is one of those scenes that stood out to me, so I remember it reasonably well. Like what she does is she says, as soon as we kill the lights and everything, I'm gonna create a wire mesh, framework of the entire room where everything was, and where so where things are standing and whatnot there. But as things start moving in there, the mesh is going to become less and less accurate. So you better get out quickly before, people start moving around in the dark, knocking crap around.
Well, and that's one thing that Jim uses really well with Lash is like, you don't hear that a lot whenever someone talks about like, oh, photographic memory. Well, there's so many different things you can actually do with a photographic memory, but no one ever really uses it in this kind of way. And that was really, I thought that was one of the coolest things, where he's like, okay, well, really, you could just close your eyes and I'll project everything the way it was, like you said, right before it went down. And then Harry's able to kind of, throw stuff to kind of throw him off. And then I love when Thomas comes to the rescue again here, and he faces off against the guy's last name is Malvora, isn't it?
It's one of those courts. I'm pretty sure it is Malvora, because Scavis, I thought, doesn't get introduced until the next book.
But I forget the name of him, but he ends up. But he ends up he's like, oh, you, because he didn't know at first that Thomas, because he was trying to sell Harry on eBay.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here? He's like, and Harry, because he heard him like bidding, like people were bidding on the phone, and then he's like, "Are you trying to sell me on eBay?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, and then I love when Harry's like, "Who's winning?" Yeah, like,
oh my god,
he's like. Well, I think it was the Ortega's wife was winning the bids at the when he's like, oh
which
yeah,
makes sense.
Duke Ortega's wife is winning right now. He's like, well, can you call the White Council? He's like, maybe at least they'll run the bids up to give him some more time. I thought that was hilarious. And like I've never expected that, but that is just hilarious to me. It's like, yeah, you can. He's like, oh yeah, you can do anything online. And Harry, he's like, how do you even know? He goes, I'm interested in computers. And then like, well, then you have Thomas coming to the rescue, ends up like blowing the guy's like foot off or something like that. And he was like, yeah, and he didn't want him again. They're trying not to let anybody know who they are, but he's like, I'm out for myself, basically. Like I'm keeping Harry around, like he's like catpawing, as the white court likes to say, using cat's paws.
See, just to go back to the bidding real quick, the one thing that cracked me up about it was when he saw the description, it said one Harry Dresden slightly used.
Yeah.
I feel like that's putting it nicely. That's
Right?
in your description.
Yeah. I don't know how beat up Harry was. He might be a lemon if you. Oh, but once we start, we get past that part, and then because we all thought, like, or at least I did. I was like, okay, this is the guy. This is who's been doing the whole thing. And then he admits at the end, he's like, I have nothing to do with that. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, I just saw you there and thought it was a good idea to try to take you and get what I could get out of you. Mm-hmm. And now we're like 60% of the way through the book, and then we're back to square one. Yeah. We're like, what the heck,
Was this before or after? Because these were the guys that hit Mouse with the car, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, like so, Butcher was building these guys up real hard to end up being these big bads. So Harry had this seething hatred because like this was one of the first times I think. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it was this one of the first times that Jim really pushed a fake out on us, because Harry was like, "You killed my dog," and everyone was like, "Oh shit, Mouse is dead."
Oh then, yeah.
Of course he's not. He comes back and everything later on, but that might be the first time he pulls a hard fake out like that.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like I must not have believed that Mouse was actually going to die. So I remember I didn't cry, and if I had actually thought that was happening, I would have.
All the readers are just calling bullshit. Yeah, bullshit, Jim.
Oh, I could imagine, Sarah. I watched all your reaction videos, your vlogs, and I was like, yeah. Oh, but yeah, so. Yeah, and then I forget how what like Molly ends up getting taken. How did she end up getting kidnapped? I forget exactly. Does it? I'm trying to remember.
It's weird. It's like it must be so forgettable that because I'm usually pretty good at remembering that kind of crap, and I'm drawing a blank.
All I remember is the phobophage getting sent to her house.
Yeah, because Harry ends up trying to backfeed, like mirror the.
So I think it's one of them like takes her, right, because he finds the brother in the treehouse, and he was like, Hammer Hands came after me, and I figured he can't climb, so I went up in the treehouse.
He couldn't climb, right? So that's why I'm up here. And then the rest of the family, Charity and everything, they're in the panic room, right?
Yeah.
And then that's when Harry, Harry starts freaking out, and Harry's like thinking that Charity's gonna kill him because he's like, I sent them. And now, did you guys? I was thinking that the house would have been protected,
Entirely.
from spirit, because they're spiritual entities, right? I mean, they're from the Never Never. But I would have thought that like their guardian angels or whatever would have stopped them. So I'm not sure why.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah, I don't think they're here.
That's not a thing yet.
Well, yeah, but well, he does say that his house is protected, from spiritual attacks beforehand. So I just thought I would have thought, that would have something like that would have been stopped.
Michael's still on the job on that one.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
We do get a nice moment with Charity though when Harry's just like, Charity, how long has it been since you've used your magic?
Oh,
Like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then we what, Sarah, what did you think when she starts telling him the story about how her and Michael met?
Like I said before, I really liked it. I enjoyed getting to know more about Charity because up until this point, she's just kind of that shrewish
Angry mom.
wife of his best friend. Like, of course, her teenage daughter hates her, and she hates her husband's best friend. And like, their family's so good, and Michael is so good, and we know that Charity must also be so good because they're all together, and we don't get to see much of her. But then as we peel back and we see what happened when she was younger, her introduction to the magical world, how she felt, and I'd really liked getting the insight into Charity. And obviously, as we'll talk about, she then gets a major role in this book, which is one of my favorite things about the first 8 books of this series. It is like the best mom moment.
She's a super badass. Wears
Well,
armor and has a warhammer.
Oh my god.
Well, Sarah, you can lead us right into it then.
Well, even before that, though, learning that Michael literally slayed a dragon.
Dragon.
I was going to say that was one hell of a first date.
Right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, that was like you said, we get to see a little bit more, into Charity, and where Dresden's like, all right, we're gonna go in, we're gonna go in, but like you guys don't have to go with me, and like, but all the crew, everyone's like, we're there, we're with you.
Isn't Charity like strapping on her armor as he's saying it? She's like, I'm already on the way.
I love the explanation, for why she's such a badass, and it makes absolutely perfect sense. They're like, Charity, like, what the crap? Like, where did you get all this stuff, and why are you so damn buff? And she's like, who do you think spars with Michael?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
And
holy shit, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is another like iconic moment where she's not even worried about like them saying anything, them picking and choosing who's going. She's like, she already has her mind made up, and she's like strapping the chainmail on, and she's got the helmet and the war hammer, and, and even Murphy's impressed. Even Murphy's like, damn.
She looks like a freaking Valkyrie. And has a warhammer.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, like Nathan said, she's like, yeah, who do you think's been sparring with him for 20 years? She goes, I make all his weapons and clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, Alfred, like Batman over here, but
I mean, also you never ever stand between a mama bear and her cub. There's a reason that's a literary trope.
But yeah, and then I like how Harry calls on the summer lady, and Fix calls in his little favor. But we also, I think this was the book where we figure out that they kind of can't really talk to him about certain things.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. like, and it's not that they don't want to, and they make it explicitly clear. It's not that we do not want to tell you. We physically cannot tell you. You know, it
They're
shows
like compelled
how
not to, right?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
compulsion. It shows you how deeply enmeshed, like, you know, the summer, like, energies, for lack of a better term, becomes
Mhm.
inside your body. You know, like once you become Fae, you know, you are one
There's
of
some
them.
restrictions in place.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that kind of foreshadows things down the line. But yeah, it's like, he's just like, and Harry's trying to figure out ways to get around this. Like, okay, it's almost like blink one for yes, two for no. Yeah, he's like, you guys want to help me, and then he's like, but you can't. He's like, no, you know. But I do like the little ways that they kind of get around it by, like, as they open the the veil or whatever to go in. Uh, he goes, well, we can't help you, but since there's already an opening here, well, we got to make sure nobody comes through here, so we have to balance out the scales a little bit, to work around. Chaz, what did you think about when they first stepped through and they realized that they were actually at Mab's headquarters?
Yeah, that was. I was like, oh no, because they're like they're in the completely wrong place that they want to be, like messengers uh from the summer court and everything, and that's not a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, and there we also see just dead bodies everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just
Obviously,
like
something's
you're like
gone down.
you just stepped into for like a better word, you just stepped into some kind of shit show here. It's like oh no,
Mm-hmm.
and they see like troll skulls everywhere, and
For the
and then
longest. Sorry, go on, Joe.
well, and Harry notices he notices that hellfire had been used,
Mm-hmm.
And that one was just crushing my mind at first. My first read through, I'm just like, okay, who else does that? Like, did Harry come here without his knowledge, or because he's been making a big deal about it, right? That, like, oh, I've been using hellfire, and then we've never seen anybody else use it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was pretty much going to say the same thing, more or less. Like, it broke my brain, the first read through when that happens and everything, because I just could not wrap my mind around, like, I didn't think it was Harry, but I couldn't wrap my mind around who in the hell could have been could have done that. So I'm like, okay, well, we got an unnamed heavy mover and shaker running around here. If they're willing to take on Mab at her home, home field advantage is on her side, and they're just like, have some fire, ice melts.
Well, yeah, and they were. It's one of these things where it's like, he was like, well, what they were asking Harry, they're like, well, who could have done something on this magnitude? And he's like, I don't know, unless Mab pissed off some old god,
which isn't out of the picture, but again,
right.
Like I said, at this point in the books and everything, you start becoming aware that if Jim brings something up, it means something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this was like one, like, because like Alex was bringing up that this is kind of, especially at the beginning, it was kind of like, how Jim will, like, we'll have some crazy book, and then he kind of brings it down a little bit, because you can't keep having end of the world, scenarios, or it'll just get old. But then, we get some crazy stuff here, some revelations as they got further into Arctis Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those revelations become foreshadows for things to come. Chaz, you said you were about to start changes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll
Do I
keep.
need to plug my ears?
Oh no, I won't say anything. I just want to
Nothing
make sure.
happens in that book anyway.
It's one of them boring slugs. They call it changes because nothing does.
Filler book.
But I mean, we see the Lanchi, encased in her tomb that's opened by freaking, what Harry ends up accidentally using the summer fire or whatever.
All right, wait. If you're gonna say that, you're gonna have to go accidentally. It's gonna have to be air quotes here because
Accidentally.
he totally poured a metric shit ton of summer fire into Winter's wellspring, which pissed off Winter, and all of them.
Well, and it's weird too because at the beginning of these books, like the Alanshi was supposed to be, or she seemed to be, like one of the most evil characters, and you're meant to hate her, but like the things that she's kind of done, she's kind of like, I've never wanted to hurt you, and you're kind of like, okay, in her sick way, she actually does.
She's technically not wrong.
Yeah.
This perfectly encapsulates the fairies' blue and orange morality to humans black and white. It's not even on the same spectrum. It's completely alien to both sides. We just don't understand each other at all. And so, she, in her mind, she's like, I will turn you into a dog and keep you right by my side. You will be safe. I will have fulfilled my, in perpetuity agreement with his mom. To me, right there, I just want to throw out, like, I to this day, I want to know what in the hell Margaret Le Fay did to get like a bargain with one of the more powerful Fae that does not end. Like that had to have been a hell of a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I think at some point we'll get what she was and what, because so a little bit has been revealed over time, but yeah, but I really I actually felt for Leonchi when she's being melted and she's like I'm meant to be here, and Harry's like, we're not leaving without her, we're pulling her out. And then just as he's like coming to her side, like, okay, I'm gonna get you out of here, she starts freaking out on him.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see a weird shift. It's cool how he describes it, because he's like, like almost like a an otherworldly shudder happens through her and everything, and then she's just like explaining to him, no, leave me here. I'm sick. This is helping me. If you believe it or not, so just leave me here. And then, like, as quickly as it comes, it goes, and then, she shifts back to her, for lack of a better term, crazed persona. And she's like, no, I ignore what I just said. Let me out now. Please let me out. And he's like, fuck that.
Well, Chaz, what did you think about when they showed Lloyd Slate?
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
That's when he was up on the tree,
blinded.
Oh, okay,
crucified.
Yeah. That was honestly kind of freaky.
Yeah, I think didn't Leonchi say that like they had etched into his teeth and what is it? She Mab is torturing him with hope and love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you,
oh man, like
if you torture a person and do nothing but torture them, that becomes their new normal. It doesn't become torture. Like the human mind is so incredibly adaptable. We can adapt to the most awful crap. But if you mix in a pull out of the precipice of despair, and show them, make them think that they're out of that hell, only to put them back in it resets everything. It's just so twisted.
You gotta regenerate the liver before you bring the eagle back.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what book was it? Can any of you guys remember the book that Mab was talking to Harry about this when it came to Slate? And like, it may have been Summer Night, but he was like, "What are you going to do with him?" He was like, "Torture him, of course." And what exactly does that mean? He was like, "She says something like crucify them," and he's like the Romans, and he's like, "Well, honestly," she says, "Well, the Romans were. When it comes to the tortures I'm going to bring to him, the Romans were hobbyists at best." And you're like, "Holy shit!" Hey, Alexander.
Hello.
But yeah, I mean, one of the best moments in any of the Dresden books is with when we get to see Charity. We get to see Charity break through that wall of ice with the hammer. Oh my gosh,
that was awesome.
She's just like, I'm, because you kind of put you in there. It's like she's putting everything she's got into the shot with the silver hammer, and it shatters it. But like,
you sure it was silver?
No. It must
you
have
would
been.
think she would bring the pain in there, right?
Yeah. Well, and they end up when they actually get Molly out and they're running back. He's telling everybody, make sure you're picking up all the iron and the steel, and they end up making Thomas carry most of it. And Thomas is like, what the hell? Why am I having to carry all this? And they're like, would you want people leaving nuclear waste all over your place? And he goes, it's like, but they're already pissed at us, Harry. He goes, I don't want to make it any worse. But then,
I loved the part where why am I blanking on her? Lily, right? That's the summer lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love the part where Lily creates a way into Hark Tor, into Fairy and everything, and Harry's sitting down there contrasting it to his crude way of doing it. He's like, here I go, and I grab a little the fabric and I just rip a tear, and here she is, and she does this stuff with her hands, and all of a sudden this screen does a shimmer, and it's already the window and everything. It's like, just goes to show you the difference in power level between a rube like me and the summer lady.
Right. Yeah.
But then again, and then we run into, what we alluded to at the beginning, where Harry's made it back, everybody's kind of safe, and he gives Molly the choice. He was like, do you want to go face the White Council? He goes, and I'll be by your side. He goes, or you can not, and if they find out, they'll probably kill both of us. He's like,
right.
All she did was mess with a few minds. What's the big deal? She just,
she tried to help. She tried to help him. He's an addict.
Her heart was in the right place.
It was, yeah.
Well, and
it does go to show you how dangerous black magic is, though. Like the things that she did to that guy, it really shows how just even with the best intentions, tweaking around with the someone's mind like that, breaks them.
Yeah.
And he was not in a good place.
Unknown side effects that you're not expecting.
Right.
Especially when you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, black magic.
Tweak some things in here. Make you scared of that. A little bit of this. Oh, I ruined your mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Better luck next time.
Well, and that's another thing. It's like, and it was alluded to at the beginning. It's like these kids who develop these magical skills, they have no idea what they're doing. It just kind of rolls up on them, and it would kind of be the same thing as like if you were a werewolf and nobody told you that you were a werewolf, and then you just turned and you hurt somebody. It's like,
is that really your fault?
You didn't know. Like if somebody and if somebody would have came out and and helped in this kind of goes on to into later in the books to develop, things. But this is one of those moments, kind of what we were talking about at the end, where Harry promises Charity, he's like, I'm going to bring your daughter home to you. He's like, I won't let anybody hurt them. And Harry thinks he's got Harry thought he had the perfect defense. He had all the answers. He's like, I'll take her on and everything. And then this is where we see the Merlin. It almost seemed as though the Merlin was just like, I just want to hurt you, Harry.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what it felt like to me.
Because he's petty.
Well, that's why I'm like, he's an absolute sociopath. Like, people are pawns.
Yep.
It's all a pawn. Like he views the world as this chess game. And he'll move the pawns to different places. Sacrifice them as he sees fit to win the game. And the game is beating Harry, making him hurt.
Well, because Harry's already pissed him off once and made him look kind of silly, and he does it again here. And I'm pretty sure Harry admits to it. He's like, I don't know if I should have gone that far. Because now they have that little one-on-one of like, look, you win either way. It's like, either this is one less person we have to kill and she helps us out, or you're right and you get to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those, another scene that will be seared into my mind, because you knew something was up when Harry's like, well, wait a second, the gatekeeper hasn't said anything yet. You gotta let him talk, right? And the gatekeeper's like, we should ponder on this.
Well, the best part too about that to me is that after he says that, Arthur, the Merlin, is like, what? I've already have 5 of the 7 votes. It's completely pointless how he votes either way. So what even bother? Then he hammers into there, but no, this is protocol. This is the way it's supposed to be. And then Rashid kind of rolls with that, saying we should ponder and wait. We should really look at all the variables on this.
Mm-hmm.
The gatekeeper's good stuff like that. It's like Joe was saying. It's every scene that he's in is either dripping with awesome information or hilarious, one-liners and such. It's usually a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously the voice of reason, and he probably has more wisdom to be the Merlin than the Merlin does. He would make a better Merlin.
My current rolling theory in my mind is I think he's the oldest of the entire council. Like, I think he's older than Ancient Mai and all these others and whatnot there. Because you got to keep in mind, the majority of his time he's spending in the Never Never, where time acts a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and I think in one of the previous books, Harry mentioned something to Bob about, did the gatekeeper travel through time, or did the gatekeeper, time travel? And Bob's like, you can't do that. He's like, but what he could do is see something and change it in the slightest of ways, and so, your theory of maybe he's really old, maybe he is tampering with time somehow.
Well, they also, what was it? I think Jim said in one of his little interviews that by the end of this series, which is probably looking to be at least 25 books now, because he added a few more. Peace Talks became 2 books, and he stuck one in between Mirror and this one, and Battlegrounds. I mean, but I think he said by the end of the series, and when Harry would have violated every single law of magic that he put down. So I'm still waiting on Harry to be messing with that time.
Yeah. That will definitely be something.
Yeah.
The last book is just going to reset time, and we're going to be back in Stormfront. Like, what?
Oh, no.
Don't pull a king.
Yeah, let's hope not.
But so Chaz, what were your thoughts when Michael comes rolling through with the rest of the senior council?
I was actually kind of surprised. I mean, I knew that somehow there would be an entourage that would come in to save the day, I was surprised that Michael got in on the proceedings, although it made sense because he's Molly's dad. But I was, because normally that council is closed just to the wizards, right? So it's not typically open to Knights of the Cross and stuff.
Yeah. It was, to me, it was one of those, and you get those every so often in Dresden books where you're just like fist pumping. You're like Michael's,
Right.
Then he rolls in, and I just love how Harry just kind of how he says it, he just looks back at the Merlin. And he's like, "Do you want to rethink your voting?" He's like,
Right.
"Michael just saved half of the senior council. I mean, do you want to kill his daughter now?"
Well,
Mhm.
the thing I liked about that was he said something along the lines of, this Knight of the Cross just saved our children, because he was saving like the wardens in training or whatnot, or the young council members and whatnot. There,
The
he's like, so he just
Padawan.
saved our children. Do we really want to kill his? And then
Yeah.
he hammers home on that too, that he's the wielder of the sword of love, and that's his daughter, or something like that, doesn't he? Where he's like, do you really want to stand between, the Knight of the Cross that wields the sword of love and his oldest daughter? Because, I mean, I know it wouldn't happen, but like, to speculate here, I really wouldn't be surprised if, so long as it's in line with the spirit of the swords and everything, which, as long as Molly was really innocent and he's protecting her, like, he'd be able to murk every single damn one of them. Like, I think Michael could just run a murder train on every damn council member in there, because that sword would basically negate their magic.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, yeah, I guess it would depend on it would depend on
If it's in line with the sword.
yeah, if they are attacking him, I guess.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, he could also defend the innocent. It all depends on whether or not you see Molly as being screwed over and her being innocent.
Yeah.
In my
Or I guess
mind,
how he can control his emotions, because he has to do it for the right reasons.
Right.
too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like, he can't
right.
do it out of anger, or it won't work.
Yeah.
man, that'd be a really interesting what if.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some, Jim write about that.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing, that this world has grown so big, and you have so many different characters that you're always like, whoa, what would it be like to pit this versus that? And then and I just love the way anytime, like, Michael does his own magic, like in Grave Peril,
All the
when
faith magic.
yeah, when all the vampires jumped on him, and then he just yells his Latin and just vaporizes them, like, nobody touches the fist of God. But yeah, I mean, and then that's another. I love the last scene where she goes back to Harry's place or whatever, and then like she ends up trying to seduce Harry, kind of.
He wants Harry to teach her everything.
And Harry's just
Then
like,
we got to call back to
yeah.
Summer Night.
And he's just
I
like,
mean, as if he wasn't already in deep shit enough with the hotel room scene.
oh my God, yeah.
I mean, here she comes waltzing out of the shower, and her mom's right there. So yeah,
Harry punches him in the face.
he's like, yeah, we're not doing that.
He's like, it's never going to happen. He's like, and she felt like, she felt so embarrassed or whatever. And then I like how he's like, yeah. So first things first, he's like, yeah, you're going back to school. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, and he's like, and you're gonna have homework from me. He goes, and then third, you're going back to live with your parents. And like her last scene was like, this is hell. I have died, and I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of that scene, I have to admit.
You were not?
Which one?
No, when she comes out, like I can see that happening, like her being the age that she is and the feelings that she has or thinks she has for Harry. I do not enjoy the like purposefully humiliating her. Like, she's much younger than he is, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird dynamic. Like, everything about this creates a bit of a weird dynamic, but I do not like the way that it was done.
Well, see the way I picture it and everything and whatnot. Like, I think I can see your point of view, but like they're you have to understand that they're completely alone. So it's kind of he's doing this to sober her up, and he's really harking back to how he knows to deal with like lustful things, lustful emotions and such. He literally did this to himself, so he's not doing something to her he wouldn't do to himself. We saw that, but like I get it would be entirely different if they were in a room or something, or if there were additional people there, which she probably wouldn't have done what she did anyway. But like, there's an extra layer of humiliation when it's around, when there are third parties viewing it. But in an intimate situation like this, like, I don't. It seemed. The best way I can put it, I guess, is it seemed Harry appropriate.
I don't disagree that it's Harry appropriate. I just think it's one of those times where I think, Jim Butcher, like, why did you need to have this here? And like, I often think this about Stephen King sometimes too. Like, when I read Stephen King, I'm like, could you just
Alex is like, oh, yeah.
Stephen King does some weird shit, man.
Without this little part, and I just feel like that's a part that I could have done without.
Yeah.
But I agree, it is a very Harry thing to do. I don't think it's against his characterization or anything. I just think that we already knew that she liked him, and I think that there could have been a different scene to really push those.
She could have just tried to like kiss him or something.
I was gonna say that.
I'm not sure that she needed to be a naked, like, young woman,
17-year-old,
in front of him. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird. It's a bit of
like I get it that he's reinforcing the like, dude, I've known you since you were like 8. Like, this isn't gonna happen. You're my best friend's daughter. But also in the same book, he's like, you have Bob talking about how they should do it, and he even goes out of his way to like say how hot she is, even though she's a teenager. It's like okay, you could have pulled back a little bit. Like, I totally understand that. Like, it makes it a little bit creepy when it didn't need to be, even though he does still say no. It's like, you probably could have had her just like kiss him, and he'd be like, what are you doing?
Well, and it's another one of those moments that, because I think AP talked about this in the very first chat. It's like one of those moments where Harry does the only acceptable thing, but Jim Butcher frames it in a way that makes it makes it feel like he wants the reader to really pat Harry on the back for doing this.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't sleep with the underage daughter of your best friend. Wow, great job, Harry. Like, it just makes it it's just a weird dynamic all around. And I don't like, it's not like I'm like, oh, Harry, what a gross pig.
Yeah.
He did shut her down, and I do think it was in keeping with his character, but it's just weird for Jim Butcher to have included it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, Alex was saying with Stephen King. In Stephen King,
weirdo,
like,
bro.
in
the middle of a Dark Tower book, and I'm like, why is this demon doing this right now? Is this really the demon's powers?
Yeah.
Okay,
there's
fine.
always one scene in every Stephen King book that you're like,
there's always one.
Did you have to do that?
He was really high that day.
That was the
big thing. Always know.
It was one of those things where it's like, I think Jim just was like, you know what? I want to make this an over the top, like, ending scene type thing. And he probably could have got away with a lesser version of it for sure.
Like, you could have done it differently and not really changed the impact of the scene, I guess, like, without getting to that point. Stephen King is just like, nope, this is what I'm doing. The weird sex now. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
But then that rolls us into the final book here in our so we're going into White Knight, and this kind of actually takes us. I feel like this is closer to coming back to the original style of the books, where it's a murder kind of investigation.
Yeah, whodunit.
Yeah, it's a very whodunit, and it's a very much Harry having to use detective skills in this. I actually like
a bit of Molly messing up a crime scene.
Oh, of course, I do like she's the wannabe, bumbling sidekick.
She tried.
Like, what? How am I gonna learn? And Murphy's just like, you're literally ruining my crime scene right now. Like, I might have to arrest you.
I love the fact where like Harry's having to use like magic to unveil certain stuff.
Mhm.
And then he, and then like you said, like Molly's like, all of a sudden we see Murphy like spin around, and she's like, "How did you know I was here?"
And then Harry has to put on
In
his.
contrast, I think it's a really good scene where Molly gets called out, right? Because Molly is still a kid.
She's being a dumb child.
And Harry told her not to, and she didn't listen. And so we get to see repercussions that I think are done like in a way more appropriate way.
And they do the little like buddy cop, like, maybe some jail time will do good for you. And just she's like, what are you talking about? And he's
sit there, enjoy your time.
Yeah, she's like, how did you see me? And then they were like, yeah, I could smell it. Murphy's like, I could smell you. And she's like, what? And this is where we figure out that Molly is great at veils. She's naturally good, but she's still, she's not like masterful, at them, But then, I love this whole, serial killer, aspect to the book itself.
I'm really sorry, Chaz distracted me because he looks like an evil villain, just stroking.
Bad cat.
If he only had a spinning chair, he could just spin around. He's like, I've been waiting for you guys.
Right? I need a metal hand, and then I could be Dr. Claw,
No, I was just about to say that.
I do wish I could stay and talk about this, but I do have to leave. So you guys enjoy talking about White Knight. I loved it though. Go figure. Shocking, right? All these books from like Deadbeat and on are all 5 out of 5s for me. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah, totally.
Agreed.
I look forward to the next chat, but I do have to run, guys.
All right, man.
Good talking to
you.
See you. Yeah, sorry about that. Technical difficulties on my end.
You're back.
Yeah, I am back. What was said during the time I was having problems?
We were just talking about how this is more of a an original style Dresden book with the serial killers, and then also how Molly is kind of becoming the sidekick here, but also kind of screwing up a little bit in the process.
Yeah, I really did like the kind of the budding, her coming into her own sort of feel that this book had. Because, now that she's been at least a year or so, because these things take place usually a year after one another, unless explicitly stated. So she's had a good year of learning all of the basics and all this other stuff. And then you start learning from Harry that, oh, well, she doesn't have the raw power I have. But man, is she good with things like veils, the little subtle, cerebral things. And he was like, oh, she's not quite as good as she gets when it comes to the veils. I think you can still see the shimmers or something. Because I know she gets caught. Murphy catches her. Yeah. Oh, the smell. That's right. Yeah, they learn about her because she's not masking that yet. See, I love that kind of stuff where you can see she's learning. She's not great at it, but she's getting there.
Yeah. Well, and then, I also love, how we, and this is another thing that we had brought up earlier when, Harry realizes that, they're attacking low-level practitioners, and somebody, he's like, well, who's this person in a gray cloak? Because a lot of people are thinking it's Harry, or, they're thinking it might be him. And he's going to go check up on Thomas. He's like, he goes, Thomas isn't telling me what he's doing. He goes, he gave me a key, in case of emergencies. He goes, well, this is kind of an emergency. So I'm going to go check up on Thomas. And we get another hilarious Harry scene where he's, gets caught by the security guards. And he has to come up with an excuse of why he's there. I just love where he's like Thomas didn't want to take the baby, and he was talking about Mouse.
Yeah.
He's like Tomas, and and Harry
Yeah, that was
Harry
funny.
hears on the what is it, on the answering machine where it's like where the woman's like, I need you right now, Thomas. I know there's more. There's so many more, and we're like, what is Thomas doing? And and then he finds Thomas's stash room with all these weapons and pictures everywhere.
Pictures of all the women, yeah.
Yeah, pictures of the crime scene, and now even Harry is second guessing. What did you think was going on there, Sarah, when all those pictures and everything were revealed?
I find it hard to remember like exactly what my suspicions were. I did not think that Thomas was hurting people, so I have been unapologetically in love with Thomas since he showed up the first time in whatever book it was. Great Peril? No.
Great Peril. It was Great
Peril. When he comes for the first time. So I did not believe that he was doing anything wrong, but I don't think I really had a lot of theories about what he could be doing. I definitely didn't know what it was that he had been doing, but I just was. I think even the slightest suspicion on Harry's part, I was like, "How dare you?"
Yeah, that's kind of how I thought too. I was like, Harry, don't even suspect Thomas. We know, Thomas is cool. There's something weird here, but he was suspecting him a little bit. He's kind of he's like,
yeah.
I don't want to.
His suspicion totally is warranted too, because he doesn't know what Thomas is doing. Thomas doesn't tell him anything anymore, so he's obviously making money behind the scenes, and who knows where he's getting it. So
this is where we do learn that, isn't it?
Yeah,
this is the
at
stylist.
The end.
We learned his secret identity.
Yeah. But honestly, I thought that he, I thought he was probably just dating rich women or whatever, because he kind of had said that he could do that. Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, a lot of us that aren't really in close knit in the family goes, we just they just go out there and date rich women, and stuff. And I was like, at first I thought that's what he was doing, and then we see all these pictures, and I'm like, all right, we're not suspecting him, so he's got to be helping in some way.
I definitely thought he was being set up. I don't think my mind definitely didn't go to helping. It did not go to the right direction. I think it was more like someone did something. Like they want Harry to hurt Thomas for some reason. Right. So they have planted this here.
Is this? I'm trying to remember. Is this the book where Molly does the psychic link with the corpse and has the psychic orgasm?
Yes,
basically?
Yes, it is. Okay.
So I kind of wonder if that also didn't play into his suspicions of Thomas, because obviously Thomas was a sex vampire. Mm-hmm. So that's got to play into it too.
Yeah. I love Butters' reaction when she was doing that. Butters is just like, he's so awkward. Harry was being pretty awkward too, but Butters was just like, he was like, I don't want to be in the room right now. Can I just
all of us?
Yeah. He's like, just get out. Oh, it was almost like I forget. Was it Harry when Harry met Sally or whatever? Where he's like, she's like, I'll have whatever she's having.
Yeah.
It's probably like he's like, man, that's. But Butter, I love Butter. He goes, that was kind of awkward, Harry. He's like, yeah. It's like, but I mean, she was able to actually get useful information, out of that, and and I think that kind of really linked us to the White Court. We were just like, okay, there's definitely some White Court shenanigans going on. But then I'm trying to think how we initially got Laura in into the mix with this. I forget what what happened exactly after that?
What was it? After what?
Oh, is this is where Marcone has restarted the his little brothel, wasn't it?
Yeah, where we is this? I think this is the one where we learn that he made Harry a gold member or something.
Platinum.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Platinum member. He was like,
Yeah.
yeah, just let him in. Just let him in. Don't mess with him. Don't piss him off. Just let the guy in. I'm
Yeah,
tired of rebuilding these things.
Yeah, he's like, and Harry's like, he tells Harry, he goes, I figured it would just be easier if I just treated you really nice. He's like, at least you wouldn't break my stuff. And he's like, but I'm clearly have nothing to do, because he was suspecting Marcone, because it's like, well, that's the first one you point to. If you can't figure it out right away, it's like, oh, all right, we'll just ask we'll just see if Marcone has some kind of angle into this. But this is where we figure out Helen Beckett is back.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I didn't really remember where she was from at the beginning, because she was from the very beginning, right? Stormfront?
Stormfront.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Beckett's. Her husband was the warlock channeling the storms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was just like, because I had to think for a second. I was like, wow, we're going way back now, aren't we? And then it was all like, once I figured out where she was from, I was just like, okay, what? And then you start thinking about what happened there. I was like, okay, they didn't like Marcone, like they were, and then I'm like, okay, so what is she doing here? There's got to be definitely a side angle here. But I did like. What did you think about when we figured out that there was like a witch's coven, but all the small practitioners started coming together?
Well, yeah, this was the birth of the Paranet.
I don't think they really called it that just yet.
No, not yet. This is like at the end of the book is when they reform it or whatever. But like the fact that they had, I mean, this is something you don't get to see very often. You didn't get to see it all in the books going up to it and everything. You never got to see the people that knew of the supernatural, had a tiny inkling of talent, but weren't a mover or a shaker. These are the guys that the forgotten, so to speak. Like they're or the never thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well,
it's almost more dangerous for them than it is for people who don't know anything about magic.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, there's just enough to draw the angry stuff to you, but you don't have enough to defend yourself from what's out there. You're not protected by any accords or anything else.
What did you guys think when Elaine showed back up?
At first, when I saw her, I'm like, I mean, she sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place her, and I had to think back to who she actually was, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, she's the chick that showed up. That was the other protege of what's his name?
Justin
DeMorn. Justin DeMorn, yeah. Yeah, I had to think back quite a bit because I'm like, man, who is she? But yeah, she went way back too. Like, we really going way back to the early parts of the series.
Well, yeah, and then I love that she is now a wizard in the phone book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which you got to know she totally copied from Harry.
Well, yeah, Sarah, what did you think when she Harry called Ramirez and asked him about Elaine, because Harry was kind of checking up on her and seeing what she's doing?
I don't think I really remember, to be honest. I don't think I remember what happens in the scene. I remember like vague things about this book. So I remember that there are the women who practice magic, and I remember that someone's targeting them, and we're trying to figure out who it is, but there's a lot of small details that I don't. So when he calls him, what happens?
Yeah. He says that he's like, oh yeah, she does really good. She does good work, but he's like, yeah, she wasn't strong enough. He goes, oh yeah, and I tested her, and she's mildly talented.
So she's like hiding her
Where she
power,
threw the tests.
which is excellent. No, I like that, and it's nice that she's out there doing things. Reading that did make me happy because Justin ruined her life even to a greater degree than Harry's, really. And
Right.
Yeah, she was fully enthralled.
Right. And so she's hiding. I'm sure she has a lot of guilt about what happened. And so it's nice to see that she's able to make a difference or make an impact in some way. But yeah, now I do remember that. And that is really funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things about the Beckett's, though, like you guys know that it doesn't just harken back to the first book here. He's actually tying, and this is something I love about the way that Butcher does, his writing, but it also ties into book 5, and explains why Marcone is helping the Mama Beckett. I can't remember her name, and everything. Like their daughter is who he shot.
Yeah.
Well, no, he didn't.
Well, no, yeah, right. He didn't explicitly shoot her, but it was he was. Yeah, exactly. He feels responsible for it and whatnot there. But I just love the fact that like you'll see them, like he'll tie these damn bows, around, seemingly completely unrelated things.
Yeah, and then we figure out that I'm trying to think who ends up in the, because they end up having to go into the deeps again, right? Over at the Chateau Wraith.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's at the end, though, isn't it? Isn't that
right?
where the book ends?
Yeah, that's towards the end. Oh yeah, and this is where Harry finally uses Little Chicago, right?
No. See, I was wanting to bring this up. He uses it to find Molly. He uses it to find Molly in the last book, but
that's when it got.
But like I wanted to bring that up because I don't know about you guys, and I'm still confused as all hell about who actually went in there and fixed the thing that would have like caused the big flaw, like the flaw in it. Because he said that there was a flaw in Little Chicago that would have blown up in his face, probably killed him.
It was Lashio, wasn't it?
Well, I don't think it was Lashio because like he was gone, and if it was Lashio, he'd have to be there. Like it would have to be him fixing it.
She would require his body to.
Yeah. Now, I mean, maybe maybe I missed that part, but as of right now, I just have no idea who in the hell could have actually gone in there and fixed that thing.
Yeah, but yeah, he ends up using Little Chicago to try to track down the guy who, he calls him something. This is where the Scabious is, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have the passenger in the car, and he ends up tracking him, and then he actually follows him into Undertown, right? And this is where we figure out that the cow is a part. Is a part of the whole thing, and then was like Cal. The guy's talking with Cal, and Cal's like, sees Harry somehow or senses him. He's like, he's followed you. And then him and Harry kind of like do like a short mental warfare or whatever, and almost blows Harry's head up or whatever, because there's like a slagged section of Little Chicago, when he wakes up, and like Molly's down there like trying to like wake Harry up and whatever, and Harry's like,
and doesn't Little Chicago get like melted then? Like, isn't it when he breaks that connection, it just like everything?
Yeah, he melts like the building that he was underneath or whatever. Yeah. And Bob's like, oh yeah, he I don't know if he says like, because there's been several times where he was like, oh yeah, he like tore up a bit of your soul or something like that. And he's like, my soul? And he's like, you guys get so touchy over your soul. Have you ever seen? I love when Bob's like, have you ever seen the thing? He's like, oh, you're always so touchy about it. He's like, but you never use it. He goes, it'll grow back.
It's fine.
Just do a little bit of soulful things, sit down, enjoy a cup of tea, You know,
Mhm.
read a book in the rain, something.
And the little Chicago part is scary because you know how hurt Harry could have been.
Yeah.
He didn't have that to channel it in. But also from the person who has like, 10,000 piece Legos right behind her. Like, I just think of like the work that went
Oh,
into putting
it's
that together.
incredible.
Like, it's just
He had-
heartbreaking.
He had
Oh,
to get
yeah.
a piece of every single object in Chicago that represented that physical thing. You know, like through thaumaturgy and whatnot. He had to go and like shave off pieces of metal on every pole, piece of
Well,
bark on every tree.
I
Every
like
leaf.
how he was like, well, I was telling you the truth that they haven't updated their salaries since 1959. He goes, but they do get us more money in certain ways. He's like, but I've been spending all that money on Little Chicago. It's like,
Heartbreaking.
yeah, and I'm just like, oh man,
Harry's constantly freaking broke. That's the thing. Jim has to figure out creative ways to keep Harry broke.
It's true. We can't have him living too well.
yeah,
He can't have nice things.
It would be
yeah.
gross.
Harry's not allowed to have nice things. Come on now.
Right, exactly.
So when does Thomas's like slimy cousin make his way into the storyline? At what point do we find out that he is involved?
The Malvora or the Scavis?
I don't remember.
Well, the Scavis is the one that's in like it's a big reveal. Scavis is the one that's in drag, hiding as one of the Coven witches and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the turtleneck,
Mhm.
Yeah, he's like, he really starts leaning on Lash in this book.
Well, she gets that name. This is the first book he starts calling her Lash.
Yeah, he really starts leaning on her, and she's like, she's like, all right, describe all the women in the room, and he's like her, she looks like this and this, but he couldn't place that one, and it turns out that it was the Scabies, and he's like she's wearing a turtleneck in the middle of summer. He's like oh crap, and then and this is where we figure out another where Mouse, we figure out that Mouse really is a lot smarter and has actual power to him, because they get back to the apartment complex.
Yeah, the bark alarm.
Yeah, and the place gets set on fire, and it's not Harry's fault. And, and then Mouse starts doing his he said it sounds like a tornado siren or something like that. But he's barking, and everybody wakes up and just knows that they need to get out. People aren't freaking out. People are just going out of the apartment complex single file line, and you're like, this might be the one where Harry tells Thomas, he's like, yeah, I think Mouse is smarter than we think. And then Thomas looks over at him, he's like, those things I was saying about Harry, that I really didn't mean any of that. And then Mouse is like, ruff, just in the side eye. He's like,
I love Mouse.
Yeah, Mouse is great.
That's why I always say, anytime I do any of the top 10s or whatever videos, it's like Oi is number one. Oi is always number one when it comes to animal companions, and then if it can't be Oi for some reason, it's Mouse.
Yeah. I think that's probably where mine would sit too.
Which series is Oi?
Dark Tower. How dare you?
Right. I don't have those things memorized as thoroughly as I've got the Dresden Files.
My unpopular opinion is I like Raoul from Cinder Spires better than Oi.
Oh,
even though I do like Oi, but I don't know if you read Cinder Spires. It's another Jim Butcher.
Not yet.
Is that one of the smug cats?
Yeah. Uh-huh. he's the leader of the cats. Yeah.
But you love cats, so I feel like that's a forgivable, unpopular opinion.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's wrong, but I mean, I don't.
You're like, it's okay. We're okay with you being wrong. It's fine.
It is a pardonable offense for sure.
Yeah, that's not saying that Oi is not one is a crime against humanity, but we'll pardon you with that.
I can't believe you pick him over Mouse.
It's Oi.
I'm just disappointed in you.
Oh my gosh! But so then we getting back on track here a little bit, but we find out that Thomas is actually not kidnapping, but he's actually trying to save these women. I loved that interaction on the boat where Harry's like tells Elaine, he's like, all right, you stay back, and I'm gonna jump in here. And he gets down and he finds him, and he's like, okay. He's like, oh, Harry, this is what I'm doing. He's like, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. And then Elaine comes down and just like electrocutes him. And he's like, he's like, no, I told you not. I told you to stay back. I had this.
Well, she doesn't know about the two of them, does she? I don't remember if they don't tell her. Because there's only like a handful of people that know about their relationship.
Yeah. Who does know? Lara.
Well, yeah. Lara. Molly, probably the Carpenters at large.
Do the Carpenters know?
I'm not sure. Molly for sure.
I don't
maybe on the Carpenters.
Yeah, Molly I think does. Yeah.
Does Molly know right away? I'm trying to fit what I know into like only this book.
Right.
At this point in time.
I think she learns about it in this book.
Okay.
I know there's another person that does later, but I can't talk about that right now. So
this is where it's hard not to spoil things. Like the big things not to spoil, but the tiny things you're like, oh,
exactly. They all just start to just shoot through the the spigot and everything. So like you could just be saying something that you think is completely innocent and innocuous, only to realize after it comes out of your mouth that it just spoiled a big reveal on like the 4 books from now, and you're like, shh.
Yeah.
No,
but I had to run out there. I'm trying to think. So we find out that Thomas has tried to save these women, and then do we go? I'm trying to think. Is this the point in which they actually storm the Wraiths complex, or because they end up having to meet with Ramirez, right?
Yes,
and Marcone too, right? Mm-hmm.
All I can remember is when they go down to the deeps. It is as far as Harry's concerned, it's a White Council affair because technically these lower power leveled weaker practitioners and stuff do technically fall under the umbrella of the White Council. It's just half the time they can't be asked to actually do anything about them. So this time he's like, no, we're going to help these people, and this is officially this is a White Council affair, so I can pull Ramirez in here and we can just go down there and curb stomp some people.
Yeah. And I love Ramirez too. Ramirez is one of those guys who's like, he just like, just brags about how it's like, man, it's hard being this good looking, or is like,
yeah.
Extra hilarious irony when you find out from Lara, about what he's not telling Harry.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, yeah. When he's like, she rolls up, she goes, "You brought a virgin?" And he's like, "She's lying. She's lying on me." Don't believe her.
But, like of all the scenarios where that actually does hold water, where it's actually remotely pertinent, would be when you go to sex vampires. You go to a freaking place where they will seduce you and shit.
Yeah,
and he still doesn't want to tell him. Exactly, he still doesn't want to tell him.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, that's very dangerous.
That's like a buffet for us.
Right.
It's like filet mignon.
Yeah, that's like a fresh kill right there.
But I just love how like Harry's like, so like Ramirez is like, so how are we doing this? He goes, and this is one of the few times where Harry's just like straightforward. He's like, yeah, we're just gonna walk down there and we're just gonna kick their ass. He's like, I like your plan. I like the plan. He's like, because
to assume that I have a plan.
yeah. Normally it's always some kind of all right. Never, if you have a fair fight, you did something wrong. Here he goes, yeah, we're just gonna walk down there and we're just gonna take them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that he puts the time in for a particularly bombastic entrance. He adds the theatrics. He hits his staff down. Adds some magic whatnot there and creates like fire trails and also the crap as he's yelling, at the top of his lungs about the Scabies and Malvora jackasses and everything. And then you get a little internal monologue where he's like, "I love a good entrance." And you're like, yeah. I guess that would be a pretty good one.
Well, yeah, and he makes it look good for the White King at where he's like he makes it look like the White Council is doing the White King's like bidding, like, oh yeah, we're fighting for him, which makes the White King look even better because that's just the way that they operate or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of forces because it's another wraith, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's like
Madrigal, yeah,
Madrigal.
Yeah, Madrigal. There we go.
Yeah, they force Madrigal into and Madrigal is like trying to tell the other guy, he's like, you do not want to go head to head with this guy. This is what he does. He's like, we're gonna lose. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, we're not. And like he knows. He's like, Harry, this is what Harry does. He just, you're feeding right into his hand. Although I did like, the way that they used it. He had some kind of magical, like, I don't know if he said it was like some kind of scarf or something that was able to like counteract Harry's magic there for a minute, and then we get to see Ramirez use the sword again, and we get to see how it unravels magic, and then just Harry just goes to town and just starts waylaying them.
Mm-hmm.
And
after the curb stomp, it's Malvora, I believe, that was in cahoots with Cal and everything, and he basically whines to him and everything, and gets and Cal. I mean, I think this is the definitive time where, definitely. This is the time where you find out that Cal is in cahoots with the Outsiders and everything, which means he was probably the one that actually conjured them up, all them books ago and proven guilty that curb stomped the council and whatnot.
Right.
But because remember, only mortals can do that.
Yeah, and I think Harry says that, like, isn't it only mortal magic that can call them up?
Mm-hmm.
So it only makes sense that it had been Cal.
And then I believe that he either I don't think he mutates Malvora like he does the ghouls that they throw in through the way, but that he definitely uses him as a conduit for those damn Outsiders to, pull the psychic whammy on Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you would never have thought that the death of an imaginary friend would hit so goddamn hard that scene did.
I was really not expecting it. For books, I guess we can't say what happens after this, but I was not expecting that to happen at all.
Yeah, especially because we have been led to believe all this time that link was pretty much inseparable.
Right.
At this point, that the only way that he would get rid of it was maybe by death or whatever. But
Yeah, well, and after because he calls in the cavalry or whatever that comes through the way, and and they just they realize that they're not gonna be able to win. And I like actually that Harry, Harry sends everybody out, and they just don't make it through, and Lash is slowing down time, and she's like, I can help you survive. and she's trying to like begging him to pick the coin up. She's just like,
And he just constantly he's refusing. It's like
Yeah.
he will not do it, and she, it borders lines to outright begging. Like she gets to the point where she damn near begging him to take the coin so that the two of them don't die. And like it's the culmination of these last three books in their growing relationship, and the fact that he gave her own name, which differentiates her from Lashiel and whatnot. There, that it finally hammers home that, for one, he's not going to take up the coin. So either you help him now, or we both, that you both die. And like it all like culminates in a very simple line, but very profound line in my eyes. Like she's talking to him, and he's like, "I'm not going to do it," and then she's just like, like you can kind of see the cogs turning in her side of the mind, and she's just like, she doesn't deserve you. Finally differentiating herself from herself, and finally 100%, she's 100% on Harry's side. And in that last, it sucks that it's this last moment she's 100% behind him, because good Lord, the amount of information she could give him now that she's not holding it back. Like she tells him a few things and then just points all the psychic damage to her.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bow out. I've got to run. But thanks for doing this. This was amazing as always. I'll look forward to the next one.
All right, Chaz.
Good talking to you, Chaz.
Good talking to you guys. Have a good night.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
I should probably get going soon. We can wrap up like a last little bit, but
it's at the end. It's at the end. So like, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
But yeah, I mean, that was where she just basically, because he had told her, they'd actually talked earlier in the thing about like, why can't you have your own life? Why do you'll die, you'll cease to be, but you can live on as your own person. And then I think, like Nathan was saying at the end, she realized that she was her own person, and and then Harry, and like you said, like she doesn't deserve you, and then she takes on that psychic trauma for Harry when they're when they get blown out of the deeps there. And I just love that moment. And it is weird because like she's basically an imaginary friend, but it like I was like hurt about it. I was like, man, just as Lash becomes somebody that you want to see Harry kind of grow with and see what happens and everything, and then she sacrifices her life for him, and then that last scene where Harry is playing the guitar, and you're just like, and she's like, she gave him one last gift. I was like, oh, how, Jim, why you do it? Why you hit me in the feels?
So painful.
That's what he does, man. That's what he does.
And he doesn't.
Won't be the last time either.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we get to get into that the next 3-book foray. And
like
boy, those 3 books.
We cannot do those 3. Like it'll be 5 hours.
Oh my god, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like the next 3, you're talking a good 2.5, 3 hours for each damn book. Because you could just, there's so much. Hell, I think half the stuff, like we really glossed over a lot of things in these last books. I think, just in the spirit of brevity here.
But yeah, like I just want to say, like, thank you to Alex and Chaz and Sarah. As always, it is great having you on. And Nathan, thanks for showing up here. And I really just can't wait to do it again. Again, we could just talk about Dresden, but we got some heavy hitters coming up here in the next few books, and we'll see if we can keep it under 3 hours. But I appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out.
As always, anytime.
Yes, anytime. See you guys.
See ya.